Hey guys, tonight we begin with a footstep that sounds wrong. Not squeaky wrong or creaky wrong, but hollow wrong. The kind of wrong that makes you freeze mid-stride and replay what you just heard in your mind, wondering if solid oak really made that empty thunk. This is about secret stair treads in English manor houses during the religious persecutions of the 16th century, the ones engineered to lift up and reveal tunnel mouths leading to spaces where priests hid from people who wanted them dead. It's about how discovering these passages changes not just what you know about architecture, but how you walk through your own home, how you understand the people who built it, and why certain rules about where you step and how you move suddenly make perfect, terrifying sense. Before we begin, let me ask something. If you're the kind of person who thinks about secret spaces, about the architecture of survival, about what gets built into houses when hiding people is more important than following building codes, you're in exactly the right place. Take a moment to subscribe to Quiet Manor Story if that sounds like you, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and whether you've ever lived in a house with secrets built into its bones. I'm genuinely fascinated by who joins me for these explorations of hidden architecture. Now settle in, maybe pour yourself something warm, and let's discover what happens when the stairs you've climbed 1,000 times reveal themselves to be doors. The manor is Hartley House in Lancashire, and the year is 1586. England is deep into Elizabeth I's reign, and being Catholic is somewhere between illegal and suicidal, depending on who's asking. The government is conducting searches, hunting priests, offering rewards for information about recusants who still practice the old faith. Every manor house with Catholic sympathies is suspect. Every servant could be an informant. Every stranger at the door might be carrying an arrest warrant. It's a time when architecture becomes theology, when the difference between a house with priest holes and a house without them is the difference between surviving persecution and watching your family hang. Margaret Ashworth is 14 years old and has lived at Hartley House since she was 6, brought here after her parents died of plague. She's technically a ward of the Hartley family, practically somewhere between a poor relation and an unpaid companion to their daughter Anne. Margaret knows this house the way you know your own body. Every corridor, every room, every loose floorboard that creaks when you step on it. She's walked the main staircase from the Great Hall to the family quarters probably 10,000 times. Up for meals, down for prayers, up to help Anne dress, down to the kitchens. These stairs are muscle memory, invisible routine, the background of daily life. Which is why she notices immediately when the 5th tread from the top sounds different. She's descending for evening prayers, moving fast because she's running late, when her left foot hits that tread, and instead of the solid thunk she expects, she hears a hollow thunk. Empty, like there's nothing beneath the wood except air. Margaret stops, looks down at her feet. The tread appears normal, dark oak, worn smooth in the centre from decades of traffic, slightly darker where hands have gripped the edge, pulling up. Nothing visibly different from the other 13 treads on this staircase, but the sound was definitely wrong. She backs up one step and tries again, deliberately placing her foot in the exact same spot. Solid thunk. Normal. She moves her foot slightly left. Hollow thunk. There, just off center, maybe 8 inches from the left edge. When weight lands there specifically, the sound changes, like pressing on a drum instead of pressing on stone. Margaret glances around. The stairwell is empty. Evening prayers start in 3 minutes, and everyone is either already in the chapel or rushing there.
Nobody is watching Margaret kneel on the stairs like an idiot investigating acoustics. She runs her hands over the wood, fingers exploring the grain and joints. Still nothing obvious. But when she presses down hard on that spot, the entire tread shifts slightly. Maybe a quarter inch, maybe less, but it definitely moves.
There's a mechanism here, Margaret is suddenly certain. This isn't decay or poor construction. This is deliberate. The fifth tread from the top is designed to move, designed to sound hollow when stepped on in specific places. It's a warning system, or a door, or both. Secret architecture built into stairs that thousands of feet have climbed without knowing anything was unusual. The chapel bell rings. Margaret is officially late. She should go, should attend prayers, should absolutely not investigate mysterious moving stair treads without adult supervision or permission or any kind of plan. But Margaret has always been terrible at should. She presses harder on the tread, feeling for the right pressure point. On her fourth attempt, she hears a click. Tiny, barely audible over her own breathing. Then the tread shifts again, this time definitively. It's hinged. The entire piece of oak is hinged at the back edge and latched at the front. Margaret lifts slowly, and the tread opens like a trapdoor, revealing darkness beneath.
She leans forward, peering into the space. Her eyes adjust to the dimness, and she sees stone. Rough-cut blocks forming the walls of a shaft, maybe 4 feet deep and just wide enough for a person. And at the bottom of that shaft, barely visible, the entrance to a tunnel, a passage leading somewhere under Hartley House, accessible through a stair tread that looks identical to all the others.
Margaret lowers the tread carefully. The latch catches with another soft click. She sits back on the stairs, mind racing. Hartley House has a secret tunnel under the main staircase, has had it, presumably, since the house was built or remodelled. Lord Hartley knows about it. He must know. You don't accidentally build escape passages into your staircase, which means this is for hiding something or someone, which means, given the times and the Hartley family's known Catholic sympathies, this is for hiding priests. This house that Margaret lives in, that she thought she knew completely, is built around architecture designed for breaking the law. The Hartleys are harbouring priests, using this tunnel to hide them during searches. And every time Margaret has climbed these stairs, she's been walking over a doorway to religious resistance.
She should tell someone, should report this to the authorities. Hiding priests is treason. The penalty is death, for the priests obviously, but also for the people hiding them. If Margaret knows about this tunnel and doesn't report it, she's complicit. She's part of the conspiracy just by knowing it exists. Except Margaret is Catholic too, was raised in the old faith before her parents died, still prays the rosary in secret, still believes in saints and confession and all the things that are now illegal to believe. She's been pretending to be a good Protestant for 8 years, attending Anglican services, memorizing Protestant prayers, hiding her true faith to survive in a Protestant household.
Only Hartley House isn't a Protestant household. It's a Catholic household pretending to be Protestant, with secret architecture built to protect priests. Margaret has been hiding her faith from people who share it, and discovering the tunnel changes everything, because now she knows she's not alone. The Hartleys haven't abandoned the old ways. They've just gotten much better at hiding them.
Margaret misses evening prayers entirely. She returns to the bedchamber she shares with Anne and sits on her bed, thinking about tunnels and treads, and what you do when solid ground reveals itself to be a door. She's lived here 8 years and never known.
walked those stairs thousands of times without suspecting anything unusual. How many other secrets is this house keeping? How many other ways has it been modified to hide faith from the people hunting it?
Anne returns from prayers looking annoyed. "Where were you?" Father was asking.
"I felt unwell," Margaret lies easily. "It passed."
"You look feverish," Anne observes, which is fair because Margaret's mind is absolutely racing, and probably her face shows it. "You should rest." Margaret rests, or pretends to. She lies in bed listening to Anne prepare for sleep, listening to the house settle into evening quiet, listening to her own thoughts spiral around the discovery that this house is hiding things that could get everyone killed. When Anne's breathing indicates sleep, Margaret slips out of bed. She returns to the staircase, carrying a candle she shouldn't have. The house is dark, except for dim lights in the servants' passages. Everyone else is asleep, or should be. Margaret kneels by the 5th tread and presses until it clicks, lifts it slowly, lowers herself into the shaft with her candle held high. The tunnel is narrow, barely shoulder width. The ceiling is so low Margaret has to stoop. It heads east, roughly toward the old chapel that hasn't been used since Elizabeth's reforms made Catholic services illegal. The walls are stone, professionally built, not some crude smuggler's tunnel, but proper architecture. This cost money. This took planning. This is serious infrastructure for serious lawbreaking. Margaret counts steps as she walks. 10, 20, 30. The air smells of earth and old stone. 40, 50. The tunnel curves slightly. 60. It opens into a small chamber, maybe 8 feet across, with a ceiling high enough to stand upright. And in that chamber, Margaret finds exactly what she expected and absolutely didn't want to see. A priest, sitting on a stone bench, reading by candlelight, wearing the black cassock that's illegal to wear, holding the Latin Bible that's illegal to possess. He looks up as Margaret enters, and his face goes through surprise, alarm, resignation in rapid sequence. He thinks she's going to report him. He's already calculating whether he has time to run, or whether he should simply prepare to die here. "I'm Catholic," Margaret says quickly. "I won't tell anyone. I just found the tunnel. I didn't know anyone was here." The priest exhales. He's young, maybe 30, with the kind of face that suggests he's spent too long living in fear. "You're Margaret, the ward?" "You know me." "I've seen you. At Sunday services. You mouth the Protestant prayers very convincingly. I wondered if you actually believed them." "I wondered the same about everyone else in this house." The priest almost smiles. We're all wondering, all pretending, all walking on stairs that might reveal us at any moment. He gestures at the tunnel, literally in this case. His name is Father Edmund. He's been at Hartley House for 3 weeks, hiding during a government sweep of the area. He says Mass for the household late at night when everyone else is sleeping. He hears confessions in this tunnel. He performs all the Catholic sacraments that are now illegal to perform, using the secret architecture of Hartley House to maintain faith in a country that's criminalized believing. "How many people know about this tunnel?" Margaret asks. "The family, the most trusted servants, about 8 people total, now 9 with you." "How long has it been here?" "Since the house was built, I think, or soon after. The Hartleys have been hiding priests for 30 years, through Mary's reign when it was legal, through Elizabeth's when it became death. They've never stopped, never will stop, Lord Hartley says. Some things matter more than survival."
Margaret thinks about that, about choosing faith over safety, about building tunnels under your house to protect priests who could get you executed, about walking on stairs that are secretly doors and not knowing until one day your foot lands wrong and the truth reveals itself.
The tread sounds hollow, she says. I noticed because I've walked those stairs so many times. The sound was different.
Father Edmund nods. It's meant to, if you know what to listen for. The Hartleys chose that tread specifically because it's about 5 steps from the top. High enough that you're still moving, not paused at the landing, low enough that you can't see it from the bottom hall. And the hollow sound warns people inside the tunnel that someone's walking above. Gives us time to hide deeper if we need to. It's a warning system. It's architecture that talks, that tells secrets to people who know how to listen. This whole house is like that once you know what to look for. Half the floorboards in the family wing are hinged. 3 of the panels in the library lift out to reveal storage spaces. There's another tunnel under the kitchen. Secret architecture layered on secret architecture, all designed to hide faith from people hunting it. Margaret returns to her room at dawn, having spent the night in the tunnel talking to Father Edmund about faith and fear and the architecture of survival. She understands her home differently now. It's not just a house. It's a machine designed to protect people who believe things that powerful people want destroyed. Every staircase might have tunnels beneath it. Every floor might lift up. Every wall might conceal spaces where priests pray and believers confess, and illegal faith persists despite laws designed to kill it. The next morning at breakfast, Lord Hartley looks at Margaret with an expression she can't quite read. After the meal, he asks her to his study. Here it comes. He knows she found the tunnel. He knows she spent the night talking to Father Edmund. Now he's going to decide whether she's trustworthy or a liability. "You discovered our staircase," Lord Hartley says without preamble. He's a tall man, 50-something, with the kind of face that shows every year of living under religious persecution. "Father Edmund told me. He says you're Catholic." "I am," Margaret confirms. "I have been all along. I just didn't know anyone else here was." "We're all very good at pretending. Have to be. But now you know. So I need to ask you directly. Can we trust you? Will you keep our secrets? Will you participate in the pretending, knowing now what you're pretending to hide?" Margaret thinks about this, about the weight of keeping secrets that could hang everyone she lives with, about walking on stairs differently, about stepping carefully around the 5th tread, knowing what's beneath it, about living in a house built for hiding and being part of what it hides. "I'll keep your secrets," she says. "They're my secrets too now. I'm part of this whether I chose it or not." Lord Hartley nods. "Good. Then there are things you need to learn. Rules that everyone who knows about the tunnels follows. Habits you'll need to develop. Ways of moving and speaking and behaving that keep the architecture secret and the people in it safe." He spends the next hour teaching Margaret how to live in a house with secret passages, how to walk past the hollow tread without changing stride, without pausing, without doing anything that might alert observers that something is unusual there, how to identify which servants know about the tunnels and which don't, how to recognize the subtle signals that mean a priest is in residence, how to participate in the protection of illegal faith while appearing to be a perfectly ordinary Protestant household. The rules are extensive. Never step on the hollow tread if strangers are present. Always walk at a consistent pace on the stairs regardless of what you hear or see. If the tunnel is in use, someone stands watch at the top of the stairs, pretending to be adjusting their shoe or fixing their dress, providing warning if anyone approaches. During government searches, everyone gathers in the Great Hall while priests hide in the tunnels. The searchers never find anything because the architecture itself is the conspiracy. Margaret learns these rules, practices them, develops habits that protect the secret spaces under the house. She becomes part of the machine, another moving piece in Hartley House's system of concealment. And the house changes for her. Every staircase is now potentially hiding something. Every solid floor might be a door. Every normal-seeming piece of architecture might be secretly doing work that contradicts what it appears to be.
This is what discovering the tunnel did. It changed how Margaret moves through space, changed what she listens for, changed her relationship to the house from inhabitant to conspirator. She walks differently now, more aware, more careful, paying attention to sounds and sights she ignored before. The hollow tread isn't just a curiosity anymore, it's a responsibility. Part of a system she's now obligated to maintain and protect.
6 weeks after her discovery, the government searchers arrive. They have a warrant to search Hartley House for hidden priests. They have authority to tear apart the house, looking for evidence of illegal Catholic practice. They have the power to arrest everyone present if they find anything incriminating. Father Edmund is in the tunnel under the staircase. He's been there since dawn when a servant brought warning that searchers were seen on the road. The household gathers in the Great Hall as instructed, looking appropriately cooperative and Protestant, and definitely not like people hiding priests in secret passages under their stairs. The searchers are methodical. They check every room. They sound walls, listening for hollow spaces. They lift rugs, looking for trapdoors. They tear apart beds and cupboards and anything that might conceal someone. They're professionals at finding hidden Catholics, and Hartley House is exactly the kind of place where Catholics hide. They reach the main staircase, start climbing, testing each tread, listening for anything unusual. Margaret watches from the hall below, heart hammering, trying to look bored and unconcerned. The searchers reach the 5th tread from the top, step on it, pause. One of them kneels, pressing on the wood, clearly hearing something that caught his attention. This is it. They've found the hollow tread. They're going to discover the mechanism. They're going to open it, and Father Edmund and everyone at Hartley House is going to hang. Except Anne, Lord Hartley's daughter, chooses this moment to faint, dramatically, loudly. She collapses in the hall with a shriek that draws everyone's attention, including the searchers on the stairs. There's chaos as people rush to help her, as Lady Hartley calls for water, as servants cluster around, looking concerned and getting in the way. The searchers leave the staircase to investigate, make sure this isn't a diversion. By the time they're satisfied that Anne is just a weak constitution young lady who faints during stress, they've lost interest in that one tread that sounded slightly different. They finish their search, find nothing incriminating, and leave, warning the Hartleys that suspicion remains even if proof is absent. Father Edmund emerges from the tunnel after dark. He's shaking, says he could hear the searchers testing the tread above him, could hear them pause at the hollow sound, could hear Anne's timely faint and the chaos that followed. He's alive because of secret architecture and quick thinking, and a 17-year-old girl who knew exactly when to collapse. This is what the tunnel means, what the hollow tread means. Not just a clever hiding place, but a system that requires coordination, timing, sacrifice. Anne's faint was planned. She knew the searchers would reach that tread. She knew they'd hear something. She gave them something else to focus on at exactly the right moment.
That's not luck. That's practiced emergency protocol. That's what you do when living in a house built for hiding.
Margaret understands now. The tunnel didn't just change how she walks or what she knows. It changed her role in the household. She's part of the protection system. When Anne fainted, Margaret knew immediately what to do. Make the chaos bigger, make the diversion more convincing, make sure every searcher's attention stayed on the girl on the floor and not the hollow-sounding tread above them. She participated in saving Father Edmund's life without thinking, without planning, just reacting based on the habits Lord Hartley taught her.
The secret architecture shapes behavior, creates new habits, changes how people move and react and think. The tunnel under the stairs isn't passive, it's active. It requires maintenance, protection, coordination. It demands that everyone who knows about it adjust their lives around it. And that adjustment becomes automatic, invisible, the new normal.
The quiet rules make sense now. Why nobody runs on the stairs. Why traffic patterns in the house flow in specific ways. Why certain times of day see increased activity in certain areas, while other areas are carefully avoided. It's all designed to protect the tunnel, to make sure nobody accidentally discovers it, to keep the searchers from hearing that hollow sound and getting curious.
The threats are clearer too, not just the obvious threat of government searchers and hanging, but the subtler threats of servants who don't know about the tunnel getting suspicious about why others behave strangely, of visitors noticing odd habits, of the architecture itself betraying secrets if people stop being careful about how they interact with it. Living at Hartley House means living with constant awareness that the floors and stairs and walls are doing double duty. They're providing shelter and they're providing concealment. They're architecture and they're conspiracy. They're solid ground and they're doors. The contradiction never resolves. You just learn to hold both truths simultaneously, to walk on stairs that are also entrances, to treat solid oak as if it might open beneath you at any moment.
Because it might. That's what Margaret learned. The hollow sound wasn't a mistake or decay. It was the house telling her something, revealing that it's more complex than it appears, that underneath the visible structure lies another structure, invisible until you know what to listen for. The tread lifts to reveal the tunnel mouth. The tunnel mouth leads to spaces where illegal things happen. Those illegal things shape how everyone in the house moves and speaks and lives.
The discovery changed everything. Margaret can't unknow what she knows, can't walk those stairs without thinking about what's beneath them, can't participate in Protestant services without remembering that most of the people around her are also pretending, also hiding, also maintaining the elaborate fiction that there's something they're not. The house revealed itself to be a liar, a beautiful, necessary, life-saving liar, built to deceive, designed to hide truth behind surfaces that look normal, and Margaret is now part of that deception, another layer of protection, another person who knows the secret architecture and maintains it through careful habits and quiet adherence to rules that don't officially exist. That's what the hollow tread taught her, that everything solid might be a door, that nothing is as simple as it appears, that architecture is never just architecture when survival depends on hiding, that you can walk over secrets for years without knowing they're there, until one day your foot lands wrong and the truth reveals itself. And once revealed, you can't go back. You can't pretend you don't know. You can only learn to live with knowledge that changes how you move through space, how you understand the people around you,
how you think about the ground beneath your feet.
The tunnel is there. It will always be there, hidden under the fifth tread from the top, hollow sounding when stepped on just right, ready to reveal itself to anyone who pays attention. And Margaret will spend the rest of her time at Hartley House walking carefully, listening for warnings, participating in the protection of spaces that shouldn't exist, but do, because people need places to hide when their faith makes them criminals.
The stair tread lifted, the tunnel mouth revealed itself, and nothing was ever solid again.
Margaret's new relationship with Hartley House's architecture lasts exactly 3 months before it gets significantly more complicated. She's learned the habits, mastered the rules, can walk past the hollow tread without changing expression, can participate in Protestant services while mentally praying Catholic prayers, can detect the subtle signals that mean Father Edmund is in residence versus when the tunnel sits empty. She's become good at this, too good maybe.
Which is why Lord Hartley calls her to his study one December morning and asks her to do something considerably more dangerous than just keeping secrets. "We need to expand the network," he says without preamble. "Too many priests, not enough hiding places. The government is intensifying searches, and we can't keep cycling priests through here every 3 weeks. We need more houses with tunnels, more families willing to harbour clergy, more secret—"
"What does that have to do with me?" Margaret asks, though she's already afraid she knows.
You're going to survey other houses, map their architecture, identify which ones have potential for priest holes and which ones don't. You're young enough to visit as Anne's companion without raising suspicion, smart enough to recognize structural possibilities, and Catholic enough to understand what you're looking for.
Margaret stares at him. "You want me to go into other people's houses and figure out where they could hide priests?"
I want you to teach other families what we've learned here, how to build secret passages, how to modify existing architecture, how to create the hollow sounds and hidden mechanisms that keep priests alive. You've discovered it once already. You can teach others to discover or create it for themselves.
This is exponentially more dangerous than what Margaret has been doing. Knowing about one tunnel in one house makes her complicit if caught. Actively building a network of tunnels across Lancashire makes her an architect of conspiracy. She'd be organising the resistance, not just participating in it. If caught, she'd face charges that make simple recusancy look quaint.
"What if I refuse?" Margaret asks.
Then you refuse, Lord Hartley says. I won't force you, but I'm asking because you're uniquely suited for this, and because the alternative is watching priests get caught and executed because there aren't enough places to hide them.
He's playing on her guilt. He's good at it. Margaret thinks about Father Edmund, about the terror in his eyes when government searchers tested the hollow tread, about how close he came to being discovered. Then she thinks about that multiplied across Lancashire, dozens of priests, hundreds of Catholics, all needing the kind of secret architecture that Hartley House has and most houses don't.
"I'll do it," she says, and feels like she just signed her own execution warrant.
The first house Margaret surveys is the Blackwood estate, 15 miles west of Hartley House. She arrives with Anne on a social visit, 2 young ladies calling on the Blackwood daughters, completely innocent. While Anne entertains their hosts with gossip and needlework, Margaret explores. She walks the main staircase slowly, testing each tread with her weight. She examines walls for hollow spaces. She studies the house's construction, looking for the architectural quirks that indicate secret modifications.
The Blackwoods have nothing. No priest holes, no hidden passages. Their house is exactly what it appears to be, a prosperous manor with no secret infrastructure, which means they're either genuinely Protestant or they're Catholics who haven't figured out how to hide it yet.
Margaret makes careful notes in code on a small paper she keeps in her sleeve. The blackwood staircase is solid oak on stone foundation, no hollow sounds anywhere. The walls are standard thickness, with no evidence of false panels. The only possibility for priest holes would be in the attic spaces, which are accessed through a ladder kept in the kitchen. Creating secret architecture here would require major construction that would be noticed and questioned.
She rates the Blackwood estate as poor potential for the network. They could maybe hide someone in the attic temporarily, but there's no escape route, no warning system, no way to get a priest out if searchers arrive. Too risky. The second house is more promising. The Sutherlands live in an older manor with 15th century bones. Margaret discovers that one of their interior walls sounds hollow when tapped, suggesting a space between rooms. The main staircase has a landing with unusually deep treads that could potentially be modified. And there's an abandoned well in the courtyard that could be repurposed as a tunnel entrance if someone was clever about it. She reports this to Lord Hartley, who sends his master carpenter to the Sutherlands under the pretense of evaluating their aging structure. The carpenter confirms Margaret's assessment. Within a month, the Sutherlands have a functioning priest hole behind that hollow wall, accessible through a panel that looks like solid oak but lifts out with the right pressure. They've joined the network. Margaret surveys 6 houses in 3 months, finds potential in 4 of them, helps design modifications for 3. She's become an expert in secret architecture, able to look at a staircase or a wall or a floor and see not just what it is, but what it could become with the right modifications. She understands now why buildings develop hollow sounds, false proportions, suspicious thickness. It's all purposeful deception. Architecture lying to protect people who can't be honest about what they believe. If you just felt that little spike of satisfaction, like watching a puzzle piece slot into place, that's exactly why I make these videos. The way secret architecture spreads, the way ordinary houses become conspiracies, it's fascinating when you see the system working. Subscribe if you want more of these moments where hidden patterns reveal themselves. But the network expansion isn't just about buildings. It's about people. And people, Margaret discovers, are considerably more unpredictable than architecture. The Thornton family lives in a manor house with excellent potential for secret passages. Their stairs have the right proportions. Their walls show evidence of past modifications. Their location near the Scottish border makes them ideal for hiding priests who need to escape north if Lancashire gets too dangerous. Margaret visits, surveys, reports back that the Thorntons are perfect candidates for the network. Lord Hartley approaches them, explains the network, offers to help them build priest holes, and the Thorntons refuse. Not because they're Protestant, they're Catholics, practicing in secret like everyone else, but because they don't want the risk, don't want government attention, don't want their house modified to hide fugitives. They're willing to practice their faith privately, but they draw the line at active resistance. Margaret learns that not every Catholic family is ready to turn their home into a machine for hiding priests. Some are too afraid. Some prioritize their own survival over the collective protection of clergy. Some believe that lying low is safer than building elaborate concealment systems. The network can't expand to people who don't want to participate, no matter how perfect their architecture might be. This creates problems, because the more Margaret learns about which houses are part of the network and which aren't, the more she knows about everyone's level of commitment to the cause. She knows which families are genuine resistors and which are fair-weather Catholics who'll abandon their faith the moment it becomes seriously dangerous. That knowledge makes her a liability to both groups. The resistors worry she might betray them under pressure. The fence-sitters worry she'll judge them for their caution.
Margaret is walking on increasingly hollow ground. Each survey, each assessment, each addition to the network makes her more valuable and more dangerous. She's the person who knows how all the pieces connect, which houses have tunnels, which families are harbouring priests, which servants are in on the conspiracy, and which ones don't know. She's become the network's weakest point, because capturing her means compromising everyone.
Lord Hartley recognises this problem. In a conversation 6 months after Margaret started surveying, he tells her bluntly that she's now a target. If the government figures out what she's doing, they'll arrest her and torture her until she reveals the network. The usual protections that keep young ladies safe don't apply to people caught organising religious resistance. Margaret is valuable, which makes her vulnerable.
I could stop, Margaret suggests. Just stop surveying, stay at Hartley House and keep quiet.
You could, Lord Hartley agrees, but you already know too much. Stopping doesn't make you less of a target. It just means you stop being useful while remaining dangerous.
There's a cold logic to this. Margaret has crossed a threshold where safe retreat isn't possible. She's either in completely or she's a problem to be managed. Lord Hartley doesn't say it explicitly, but Margaret hears the implication. If she tries to leave the network now, knowing what she knows, she becomes someone who needs to be silenced. The network would turn on her to protect itself. She's trapped by the secret architecture she's been building. Not just physically trapped in houses with hidden passages, but socially and politically trapped in a conspiracy that won't let her escape. The hollow sounds follow her everywhere now. Every house she visits, every staircase she climbs, she hears echoes of spaces that shouldn't exist but do. The architecture is talking to her constantly, revealing its deceptions, showing her where truth hides behind surfaces.
It's exhausting. Margaret is 17 now and feels 50. She's surveyed 14 houses, helped build secret passages in 8 of them, knows the locations of 17 priests currently in hiding across Lancashire, has more dangerous information in her head than anyone her age should carry, and she can't tell anyone, can't share the burden, can't even write it down, because documentation is evidence.
The network grows, more houses join, more priests hide safely, more Catholics maintain their faith despite government persecution. By spring 1587, the Lancashire network is one of the most sophisticated priest-hiding operations in England, and Margaret is its architect, literally and figuratively. She's designed the passages, she's vetted the families, she's created a system that works.
Until it doesn't.
The betrayal comes from exactly where everyone feared it would. A servant who knows too much and decides loyalty to the crown pays better than loyalty to recusant employers. The Whitfield family, part of the network for 4 months, has their house raided based on specific information about where the priest hole is located. The searchers go directly to the hidden panel in the library. They don't test walls or sound treads. They walk in, press the right spot, and Father Thomas is pulled out of a space he thought was secret.
He's arrested immediately, tortured within hours, names other hiding places within a day. 3 more priests are captured, 12 families are implicated. The entire northern section of the network collapses in less than a week, because one person talked and another person broke under pain.
Lord Hartley calls an emergency meeting of the network's core members. Margaret attends, despite being the youngest person in the room by decades. She sits in the back of Hartley House's library, listening to adults argue about what to do when your secret architecture stops being secret.
We need to shut down, one lord argues. Stop hiding priests. Stop the network. Wait until the danger passes.
The danger never passes, another counters. We shut down now. The priests currently in hiding have nowhere to go. They'll be caught within weeks.
We need to find the informant, a third suggests. Remove them before they cause more damage.
We don't know who it was. Could be any servant in any house. We start accusing people without proof. We tear the network apart ourselves. The argument circles. Nobody has good options. The network is compromised but not destroyed. Some priest holes remain secret. Some families haven't been implicated yet. But everyone knows they're on borrowed time. Once the government realizes there's an organized network rather than isolated families hiding clergy, the searches will intensify. The torture will become more systematic. The whole thing will unravel, unless something changes. Margaret speaks up from the back of the room. She doesn't mean to. She's supposed to be observing, not participating. But she's been thinking about the problem while the adults argue, and she sees something they're missing.
The network doesn't need to shut down, she says quietly. It needs to become more complex.
Everyone turns to look at her. Lord Hartley gestures for her to continue.
Right now we have real priest holes, Margaret explains. Actual tunnels and passages where priests genuinely hide. The government finds one, they know they found something real. But what if we create false priest holes? Obvious hiding places that are meant to be discovered. Let searchers find empty tunnels. Let them waste time investigating passages that lead nowhere. Make the architecture so full of deceptions that even when they find something, they don't know if it's real or misdirection.
The room goes quiet. Someone laughs, not mockery, but recognition. It's audacious and practical simultaneously. If every house in the network has 3 false priest holes for every real one, searchers waste resources investigating spaces that don't matter. And if a servant betrays the location of a hiding place, there's a good chance they're betraying a fake one, because nobody except the absolute core members knows which passages are real and which are theatre.
That's remarkably devious, one of the lords says approvingly.
It's also remarkably expensive, another points out. We're talking about building elaborate false architecture throughout multiple houses.
It's cheaper than hanging, Margaret says.
They implement her plan. Over the next 3 months, Margaret designs false priest holes for every house in the network. Some are obvious, behind panels that are almost too easy to find, in spaces that are uncomfortably small, with no escape routes. Others are more subtle, real passages that lead to empty spaces, convincing in every detail, except they're not actually used for hiding anyone. The Hartley House tunnel under the 5th stair tread becomes a false passage. Father Edmund is moved to a different hiding place, behind a panel in the chapel that sounds solid when tapped, but lifts out with the right technique. The hollow-sounding tread remains hollow, still clicks when pressed right, still opens to reveal a tunnel. But now the tunnel is empty. It's bait. If someone discovers it, they've found exactly what they expected, but nothing that actually helps them.
The architecture becomes a liar, telling lies about its lies. Secret spaces that aren't really secret. Hidden passages that don't hide anything. It's misdirection built into the bones of the house, making the building itself a co-conspirator in a deception more complex than anyone outside the core network realizes.
Margaret tests the system by deliberately letting information leak.
She mentions in front of a suspected informant that there's a priest hole behind the oak panelling in the Sutherland drawing room. The government raids the Sutherlands, finds the priest hole exactly where Margaret said it would be, discovers that it's empty and shows no evidence of recent use, because it was built last month specifically to be found.
The searchers are furious. They've been given accurate information that led nowhere. They start doubting their informants, start wondering if the Catholics are feeding them false intelligence deliberately. The network's security improves not because the architecture is better hidden, but because nobody knows what's real anymore.
But the complexity creates new problems. Now more people need to know which passages are real and which are false. The information has to be carefully compartmentalized. Different families know different things. Servants are given partial information. Even some of the priests don't know which safe houses are genuinely safe and which are decoys. Margaret is one of maybe 5 people in Lancashire who knows the complete picture, and that knowledge is a weight she carries every moment of every day.
She's walking on hollow treads constantly now. Every conversation might be a trap. Every new recruit to the network might be an informant. Every surveying trip might be her last before arrest. The architecture protected people by hiding them. Now it protects people by confusing everyone about what's hidden and what isn't. But Margaret can't be confused. She needs to remember which passages are real, which families are trustworthy, which information is accurate, and which is misdirection.
Her mind is becoming like the houses she designs, full of false walls and hidden spaces and passages that lead to unexpected places. She's learning to compartmentalize information the way buildings compartmentalize space. This goes here, that goes there. This person knows this much, that person knows less. The truth is distributed across multiple locations, so no single point of failure can compromise everything.
It's sophisticated, it's exhausting, and it works right up until the moment Margaret makes a mistake.
She's surveying a new house, the Pembrokes' potential network members, with a staircase that shows real promise for modification. She's so focused on the architecture that she doesn't notice the man following her, doesn't realize she's being watched until she returns to the Pembroke main staircase for the 3rd time, testing the same treads again, making notes in her code. The man approaches her directly. He's not dressed like a government agent, looks like a minor gentleman, someone visiting the Pembrokes for social reasons. But his questions are too specific. He wants to know why Margaret is so interested in the construction of the stairs, why she keeps testing treads for hollow sounds, what she's writing in her notebook. Margaret tries to deflect. She's interested in architecture as a hobby. She's considering having similar stairs built at her father's house. She's documenting construction techniques for future reference. All reasonable lies, all delivered with appropriate feminine uncertainty about technical matters.
The man doesn't buy it. "You're surveying for priest holes," he says quietly enough that only Margaret hears. "You're part of the Catholic network, and you're going to tell me everything you know about where the passages are and who's using them."
Margaret's heart stops. This is the nightmare scenario. She's been caught in the act with notes that amount to evidence, even if they're in code, and she knows too much. If she's arrested, if she's tortured, she'll destroy the entire network. 17 priests, 8 families, dozens of servants, all dependent on Margaret keeping her mouth shut under pressure.
She looks around. The Pembroke drawing room is full of people. She could scream, could cause a scene, could get attention that would complicate the man's attempt to quietly interrogate her. But that would also complicate her escape, would draw official attention to the Pembrokes, would potentially compromise a family that hasn't even joined the network yet.
I need to use the necessary, Margaret says calmly. Women's matters, you understand?
The man hesitates. It's improper to question a lady about bodily functions. Margaret uses his hesitation to leave the room, walking toward the back of a house where the privies are located. But instead of going there, she goes straight to the Pembroke stables, finds a horse, doesn't ask permission, rides away from the estate as fast as the animal will carry her.
She's running, actually running, something she never thought she'd have to do. The man will realize quickly that she's fled. He'll alert the authorities if he hasn't already. Margaret has maybe an hour before her description is being circulated to every government agent in Lancashire. She needs to get back to Hartley House, needs to warn Lord Hartley, needs to trigger whatever emergency protocols the network has for when a core member is compromised.
She rides hard. The horse is well bred, but not trained for this kind of panic flight. Margaret isn't a particularly good rider. She manages to stay on through sheer determination, covering 15 miles in under 2 hours. By the time she reaches Hartley House, the horse is lathered, and Lord Hartley takes one look at her and knows something is catastrophically wrong. They go to his study. Margaret explains everything. The man at the Pembroke estate, the questions, her escape, the probability that right now there are agents discussing how to arrest the young woman who's been surveying houses for hidden passages. You need to leave England, Lord Hartley says. Tonight. I have contacts in France who can shelter you. You'll be safe there until this dies down.
It won't die down, Margaret says. They know about me now. Even if I run, they'll keep looking, and they'll pressure every family I've visited, every house I've surveyed. The network is compromised because I got careless.
You got caught, Lord Hartley corrects. There's a difference, but yes, the network is compromised, which means we implement the collapse protocol. Every family destroys evidence. Every priest evacuates to predetermined safe locations. We shut down completely until we know what the government knows.
The collapse protocol is exactly what it sounds like. The network stops being a network, returns to being isolated families doing isolated things. No coordination, no central organization, no Margaret connecting all the pieces. It's safer, but less effective. Priests will be harder to hide without the organized system of passages and coordination. Some will inevitably be caught. But it's better than having the entire operation exposed because one 17-year-old got too confident about her surveying.
Margaret leaves England that night, travels to France under a false name, spends 2 years living in exile, wondering what happened to the network, whether Father Edmund survived, whether the hollow treads at Hartley House still sound hollow, or if they've been filled in to remove evidence.
She never finds out, never returns to England, marries a French Catholic who doesn't ask too many questions about her past, lives the rest of her life knowing that she built something remarkable and then accidentally destroyed it by being surveyed while surveying. The irony isn't lost on her.
But the network survives, damaged, scattered, but functional. Lord Hartley implements everything Margaret designed before she had to flee. The false priest holes continue confusing searches. The real passages stay hidden. Some priests are caught. Many survive. The architecture keeps lying, and nobody except a few core members knows which lies are protection and which are misdirection.
The hollow treads stay hollow, the tunnels stay secret, and Margaret's mistake becomes part of the network's education. Don't get too confident. Don't survey the same place too many times. Don't trust that being young and female makes you invisible. The architecture will protect you, but only if you protect it first. Step wrong, reveal yourself, and everything collapses.
That's what the tunnels under the stairs taught everyone. Not just how to hide, but how to be careful about hiding.
how to build complexity that protects even when discovered, how to make architecture so dishonest that the truth becomes impossible to find, even when you're looking directly at it.
The secret treads lifted, the tunnels revealed themselves, and Margaret learned that walking on hollow ground means every step might break through to consequences you can't escape.
The story of secret stair treads and the tunnels they revealed doesn't end with Margaret's exile. It continues for decades, for centuries, changing how people think about houses, trust, and the relationship between architecture and survival. Because what happened at Hartley House and throughout Lancashire wasn't unique. It was replicated across England, across Europe, anywhere people needed to hide things that powerful authorities wanted destroyed. The hollow treads became a pattern, the tunnels became standard practice, and the habits required to maintain them became part of how entire communities operated.
Let's fast forward 40 years. It's 1626. Religious persecution in England has shifted, but not stopped. James I is dead, Charles I is on the throne, and the tensions that will eventually explode into civil war are building. The Catholic networks from Elizabeth's time have evolved. Some have been exposed and destroyed. Others have adapted, become more sophisticated, learned from Margaret's mistakes and successes.
Hartley House is still standing, still owned by the Hartley family, still hiding priests when necessary, though less frequently now that the immediate terror of the Elizabethan persecutions has faded somewhat. The fifth tread from the top still sounds hollow when you step on it just right, still has the mechanism that opens it with the correct pressure, still reveals a tunnel that's been empty more than occupied for 2 decades, but remains functional, just in case.
And nobody remembers why it's there anymore. Not really. Lord Hartley, who commissioned Margaret to survey other houses, died in 1598. His son inherited the estate and the knowledge of the secret architecture. But his grandson, the current lord, only knows vaguely that there are old passages in the house that were used for something religious back when his grandfather was young. The specific history has faded. The architecture remains.
This creates an interesting problem. The house is full of secret passages that nobody quite remembers how to use. The habits persist. Don't step on the fifth tread with too much weight. Don't test walls in certain rooms. Avoid specific areas when strangers visit. But the why behind these habits has become unclear. They're just rules now. Things you do because that's how things are done at Hartley House. Tradition without context.
A new housemaid arrives in 1626. Her name is Elizabeth. She's 20 years old and has worked in houses without secret architecture her whole life. She has no idea that anything unusual is hidden beneath Hartley's floors. All she knows is that the other servants have very specific rules about how to walk on stairs, and she's expected to follow them without understanding why.
Don't step on the fifth tread if you can avoid it, another maid tells her.
Why not? Elizabeth asks. Just don't. It's bad luck.
Bad luck. That's what the prohibition has become. A superstition. Nobody wants to explain that the tread sounds hollow because there's a tunnel underneath it. Nobody wants to admit the house has priest holes. So they transform the practical rule into mystical nonsense. Don't step there. It's unlucky. Don't ask why. Elizabeth obeys for about a week. Then her natural curiosity wins out, and she steps directly on the forbidden tread, hard, with all her weight, and hears exactly what Margaret heard 4 decades earlier, that hollow thunk that doesn't match the other steps. Elizabeth stops, listens, tries it again. The sound.
She kneels on the stairs when nobody is watching, tests the tread with her hands. discovers it moves slightly, presses harder, hears the click. The tread lifts. Elizabeth looks into the darkness beneath and sees the beginning of a tunnel that she had absolutely no idea existed.
History repeats, but this time there's nobody to explain what Elizabeth has found. The household has maintained the secret architecture while losing the memory of why it's secret. Elizabeth is discovering a passage that everyone knows exists but nobody discusses. She's stumbled onto something simultaneously obvious and hidden.
She goes to the head housekeeper, who looks annoyed and resigned simultaneously. You found the priest hole.
The what?
Old tunnel, from back when Catholics needed hiding. Hasn't been used in years, probably. We keep it sealed but functional. Orders from the Lord. Don't talk about it, don't show it to anyone, don't step on that tread when visitors are present. That's all you need to know.
That's insufficient information, and they both know it. Elizabeth wants to know where the tunnel goes, why it's still maintained, what other passages might be hidden in the house. But the housekeeper won't tell her, partly because she doesn't know all the answers herself, partly because the rules about secret architecture have become rules about secrecy itself. You don't talk about the passages. You just maintain them, preserve them, keep them functional, even though nobody remembers exactly why they need to stay functional.
This is what happens when secret architecture outlives its secret. The passages remain, but the purpose fades. People maintain tunnels because their parents maintain tunnels. They follow rules about where to step because those rules have always existed. The architecture becomes its own justification. We have hollow treads because we've always had hollow treads. We maintain them because that's what we do. The why gets lost, but the how persists. Elizabeth spends her first year at Hartley House discovering that the fifth tread isn't the only secret. The house is riddled with passages, false walls, hidden panels, spaces that shouldn't exist but do. Most of them are empty. Many haven't been opened in decades, but they're all still maintained with the same careful attention that Margaret's generation gave them. Oil on the hinges, dust cleared from the mechanisms, tests to make sure everything still works, even though nobody is using it. It's preservation without purpose. Architecture maintained not because it's actively concealing anything, but because abandoning it would feel like losing something important. The hollow treads have become heritage. The secret passages have become tradition. They're not protecting priests anymore. They're protecting the memory of when they protected priests.
Then the English Civil War starts in 1642. Suddenly the passages aren't just heritage anymore, they're useful again, but not for hiding priests, for hiding royalist sympathisers from parliamentary forces, for concealing weapons and correspondence and evidence of political allegiance that's become dangerous to show. The Catholic network's infrastructure gets repurposed for entirely different conspiracies.
The hollow treads sound just as hollow when you're hiding royalist soldiers as when you're hiding Catholic clergy. The tunnels work equally well for both. Secret architecture doesn't care what secrets it's keeping. It just provides space for things that need hiding. The same passages that sheltered Father Edmund in 1586 shelter Cavalier officers in 1643. The buildings outlive their original purposes and find new ones.
This pattern repeats through the centuries. After the Civil War, some passages hide Jacobites. After the Jacobite risings fail, some hide smuggled goods. By the 18th century, most of the priest holes in Lancashire have been converted to smuggling tunnels, or simply sealed up and forgotten. But a few houses, Hartley House among them, maintain their secret architecture, even when there's nothing particular to hide. They maintain it because it's part of the house's identity, part of its story, part of what makes it different from other houses. The habits persist even longer than the purposes.
Visit Hartley House in 1750, a century and a half after Margaret surveyed it, and the servants still avoid stepping on the fifth tread, still walk carefully around certain walls, still follow rules that haven't had practical justification in decades. Ask them why, and they'll tell you it's tradition. Ask about the tunnels, and they'll change the subject. The house has trained generation after generation of occupants to maintain its secrets, even after the secrets cease being dangerous.
Fast forward to the 20th century. Hartley House survives both world wars, gets converted into a boarding school briefly, returns to private ownership, eventually becomes a historic property open to tourists. And the fifth tread is still there, still hollow sounding, still concealing a tunnel that now has electric lights and safety railings installed, because tourists love secret passages.
The guides tell Margaret's story, or a version of it. They explain that secret stairs were common in houses that harboured priests during Elizabeth's reign. They point out the mechanism that opens the tread. They take groups down into the tunnel and explain how priests survived down there during searches. They make it educational, historical, safe.
But they miss something important. The story isn't really about priests. The story is about how discovering the hollow tread changed everyone who walked those stairs afterward, about how knowledge of secret architecture changes your relationship to the building you live in, about how once you know the floors might open, you walk differently forever.
Thank you for spending this time with me exploring the secret stair treads and what they reveal about architecture, secrecy, and survival. If this story changed how you think about old houses, about the spaces hidden in buildings we think we know, about how architectural deception becomes tradition, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to Quiet Manor Story and share your thoughts. What surprised you most? Have you ever lived in a house with secrets? How do you think secret architecture shapes the people who interact with it? I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely curious about your reflections.
Because here's the thing about hollow treads and tunnel mouths. They don't just hide things, they change habits. People who live in houses with secret passages develop specific ways of moving, specific cautious approaches to their environment, specific awareness that solid-looking things might not be solid. That's not paranoia. That's appropriate recognition that architecture can lie.
And those habits spread beyond just the people who know about the passages. Watch anyone who grows up in Hartley House, and you'll see it. They step carefully. They test weight before committing fully. They approach stairs with a specific thoughtful attention that people from normal houses don't develop. It's unconscious, learned through observation and osmosis. You absorb the paranoia of secret architecture, even if nobody tells you why you should be paranoid.
This is what changed when the treads revealed themselves. Not just one person's knowledge, but entire communities' behavior. Whole families learning to walk carefully, whole servant staffs learning to maintain things they don't understand, whole regions developing habits that persist long after the danger that created them has passed.
The quiet rules make sense now. No running on stairs, no stomping, no rough treatment of banisters or walls. Test your weight before committing. Listen for sounds that don't match. Pay attention to differences in acoustics. These aren't just good manners. They're survival skills that got repackaged as etiquette once the survival part stopped being immediately relevant.
The threats changed over time. Started as government searchers hunting priests, became parliamentary soldiers hunting royalists, became customs officers hunting smugglers, became eventually just the generalized threat of discovery. That someone will find out you've been keeping secrets, maintaining passages, lying about what your house contains. The specific danger evolves, but the need for careful walking remains constant.
Secret architecture creates a permanent state of low-level vigilance. You're never entirely relaxed in a house with hidden passages, because the architecture itself is a form of ongoing deception that you're either protecting or potentially exposing every time you move through space. It's exhausting if you think about it, so most people stop thinking about it. Let the habits become automatic. Let the careful walking be just how they walk. Let the vigilance become background noise they don't notice anymore. But it shapes them, shapes how they think about buildings, about trust, about what's hidden and what's revealed. People from houses with secret passages look at other houses differently. They assume complications, expect hidden spaces, know that walls might be hollow and floors might lift, and nothing is necessarily what it appears to be. That's a worldview, a specific way of understanding architecture, and by extension, everything else. If buildings lie, what else lies? If floors can be doors, what other solid things are secretly openings? The metaphor extends. The hollow treads train people to expect deception everywhere, to test everything before trusting it, to assume that surfaces conceal depths worth investigating. Margaret spent 2 years in France before dying of plague in 1589. She was 19, never married, never had children, never saw what happened to the network she built. But her influence lasted centuries. Every house she surveyed retained some modification. The tunnels under Hartley House are still there, still accessible, still hollow-sounding if you know where to step. They've been there for over 400 years. They'll probably be there 400 years from now, maintained as historic curiosities or architectural anomalies, or examples of how buildings adapt to serve needs their original builders never imagined. Because that's what secret architecture does. It persists, adapts, finds new purposes when old purposes become irrelevant. The passages built for priests house royalists, house smugglers, house tourists. The hollow treads that warned of danger become teaching tools about danger, become historical artifacts about how people once needed warnings. The function changes, but the form remains. And the habits endure longest of all. Generations after anyone remembers why you shouldn't step on the 5th tread, people still avoid it. Generations after the passages stop being secret, people still treat them with the same careful attention that Margaret's conspirators used. The architecture's influence extends beyond its physical presence into the realm of culture and behavior and transmitted caution. That's the real legacy of the secret stair treads, not the tunnels themselves, but the way they changed how people moved, how they walked, how they thought about buildings and spaces, and the relationship between surface and depth. The hollow sound became a warning about more than just hidden passages. It became a reminder that everything might contain more than it shows, that careful investigation reveals complexities invisible to casual observation, that you should test the ground before assuming it's solid. Modern historic preservationists struggle with this when they work on houses like Hartley. They can repair the treads, restore the hinges, make the mechanisms work smoothly again. But they can't replicate the habits, can't recreate the specific way Margaret's generation walked those stairs, can't instill the vigilance that came from knowing discovery meant death. The architecture survives, but the lived experience of it doesn't. Except it does, sort of. Visit Hartley House today and watch the guides walk the stairs. Watch them step carefully around the 5th tread, even though they're giving tours explaining exactly how it works.
Watch them maintain the same cautious approach that Margaret developed 400 years ago. The habits transmitted through demonstration and imitation outlast the danger that created them. The guides walk carefully not because they're hiding priests, but because everyone who works at Hartley House learns to walk carefully. It's part of the job, part of the building's character, part of what it means to inhabit this specific architecture.
That's remarkable when you think about it. 4 centuries of habit transmission. 4 centuries of people teaching other people how to walk on stairs that might open. 4 centuries of architecture shaping behavior, which shapes culture, which shapes how new people learn to interact with the building. The treads lifted once in 1586 to reveal tunnels to Margaret. They've been lifting periodically ever since, revealing the same tunnels to each new generation that discovers them, and each generation develops the same habits in response.
You could argue this is inefficient, that once the danger passes, maintaining the habits is unnecessary. Why teach modern guides to avoid stepping on the 5th tread when nobody's hiding priests anymore? Why maintain the cautious walking when there's nothing to be careful about?
But that assumes the value of the habits is purely instrumental, that they're only worth maintaining if they're actively protecting something. Margaret would disagree. She understood that the habits themselves are worth preserving, that learning to walk carefully through potentially deceptive architecture is a skill worth having regardless of immediate danger, that maintaining vigilance in environments designed to conceal things is its own form of education.
The secret treads taught generations of people to pay attention, to notice acoustics, to test weight before committing, to assume complexity beneath surfaces, to look for mechanisms and triggers and ways that ordinary-seeming things might be extraordinary if you approach them correctly. Those are universally useful skills. The fact that they were developed to hide priests doesn't limit their application to religious persecution. They work for navigating any situation where what you see might not be all there is.
So the habits endure because they're useful, because once you've learned to walk carefully in a house with secret passages, you walk carefully everywhere, because the training transfers, because architecture designed for one purpose can teach lessons applicable to everything else. The hollow treads were about protecting priests, but learning to hear and respond to hollow treads becomes about protecting yourself from all the other forms of hidden danger that don't announce themselves as clearly.
This is what changed when the stair treads lifted to reveal tunnel mouths. Not just one architectural feature, but an entire approach to inhabiting buildings, and by extension, inhabiting the world. The discovery that floors can be doors, that solid things can open, that appearances deceive. That discovery reshapes how you move through space forever after.
And the quiet rules and threats that the title mentions, they emerge naturally from the architecture. The rules about where to step and how to walk, the threats of discovery if you step wrong, the quiet necessitated by living in spaces where loud noises might alert searchers to hollow sounds beneath your feet, all of it flowing from the decision to build secret passages and the subsequent decision to actually use them.
The architecture dictates behavior, which creates culture, which establishes rules, which generate threats, which reinforce the behavior that the architecture initially required. It's a complete system, a feedback loop where buildings and inhabitants shape each other continuously. The treads are hollow because people need to hide things. People develop careful walking because the treads are hollow. The careful walking becomes culture, which persists after hiding stops being necessary. The culture maintains the hollow treads, even when they're not actively being used, and the maintained architecture teaches new generations to walk carefully, completing the cycle.
Hartley House exists in this cycle still. The treads are hollow, the tourists walk carefully, the guides teach the history explains the habits.
The habits maintain the architecture validates the history. Around and around, 4 centuries of repetition, creating a depth of tradition that makes the house something more than just a building. It's a living educational system, teaching everyone who enters about secrecy, survival, and the complications beneath surfaces.
Margaret would appreciate that, probably. She spent 18 months of her life surveying houses and building networks to hide priests. Most of that work failed or was compromised, but the architectural approach she pioneered, using secret passages not just to hide, but to create systems of hiding that persist and adapt, that succeeded beyond anything she could have imagined. Not because of any individual tunnel, but because of the habits the tunnels created.
The secret isn't the passage. The secret is knowing how to walk in a world where passages exist. That's what Margaret discovered and what she taught others. That's what survived 4 centuries while specific conspiracies came and went. That's what tourists absorb without realizing it when they visit Hartley House and watch guides step carefully around.
The stair treads lifted, the tunnel mouths revealed themselves, and everything about how people moved through buildings changed permanently. Not just in houses with actual passages, but in how everyone thought about architecture and trust and the relationship between surface and depth. The hollow sound echoed far beyond Hartley House, far beyond Lancashire, far beyond the 16th century.
It echoes still, every time someone in an old building steps carefully. Every time someone tests a floorboard before committing weight. Every time someone approaches a staircase with awareness that it might contain more than it shows. The hollow sound of secret architecture reverberating through centuries of habit and caution and transmitted wisdom about walking carefully in a world where solid ground might be doors. That's the story, not just of tunnels, but of how tunnels change people. How architecture shapes behavior, shapes culture, shapes new people, who shape the architecture in return. The treads lifted, the habits formed, and 400 years later, people still walk carefully on stairs that might reveal themselves to be something other than they appear. The conspiracy ended, the persecution stopped, the priests found safety or martyrdom, but the hollow sound persists, and the careful walking continues, and the secret architecture keeps teaching people lessons about deception and vigilance, and the importance of testing ground before assuming it's solid.
The tunnel mouths opened. What they revealed wasn't just passages, but an entire way of living in houses built for hiding. And that way of living became permanent, transmitted across generations, maintained through habit long after danger passed. The architecture won, not by keeping secrets, but by teaching everyone who encountered it that secrets might always be present, that solid things can hollow, that every step requires attention, that walking carefully isn't paranoia, it's respect for buildings that contain more than they reveal.
And so people walk carefully still, 4 centuries after Margaret discovered the hollow tread, 4 centuries after Father Edmund hid in the tunnel beneath, 4 centuries of footsteps testing weight and listening for sounds that don't match, and maintaining vigilance in old houses where floors sometimes open and stairs sometimes reveal spaces that shouldn't exist but do. The habit endures, the architecture endures, and the hollow sound that started it all echoes still in the careful footsteps of everyone who learned that solid ground might be secretly a door.